Good morning, everybody. I'm just coming back on here. I wanted to show you a little bit of the processes and the procedures to create what I call realistic leaves. You can see that it's a lot more natural than maybe what you're used to. These represent a lot closer to what real leaves actually look like. And that's my whole process. I'm not a big fan of impressionistic type leaves, and so most everything I do with realistic leaves is to create things that actually look like nature. And so, to that end, I'm going to take you through some of the processes involved with getting there. So let's go ahead and get started. I already started somewhat on a piece here that just so that to save some time, because you don't need to see the whole process as far as laying it out and everything. And I'll try my best to try to keep this centered for you. So as you can see, I've already started on some of this. And I've actually beveled the outside, cut it first and bevel the outside. If you can see on some of these areas here, you can see a little bit of a raised area right here. Okay, that's not done with an undercut or an undershot beveler. An undercut and an undershot beveler will not work nearly as well as a regular pedal lifting procedure, where you use a hand tool that looks like this so that you can actually get up under there, usually about a half an inch or so, and raise up the material. And that's really about the only way you're going to get there. Now, the bevelers used to create this little raised area here, if you notice, what it does is it actually pushes some of the meat from where you cut it, pushes it forward. In that way, you have more material here to work with when it comes to stretching and doing the pedal lifting. So I had my friend over in Bulgaria, I think it is, Sergey, from leatherstamptools.com. Now the stamp has an S at the end of it, so it's leatherstampstools.com. He's actually made some prototype pieces for me, and he's working on making the ones for the outside curves also. So these would be the convex, and the ones he's working on now are actually concave. So if you're looking to get some of these, I just about guarantee you, if you tell him that Ed LeBar sent you, he will know exactly what you want. So I've already done that all the way around, and so now we're just doing some pear shading, and it's pretty simple pear shading. You just have to be aware of the shape of a leaf is not perfectly flat. If you cut a cross section of a leaf, it actually looks kind of like a bird wing in flight. It starts at the tips, comes in and goes up, and then as it gets towards the stem, it actually goes down. And so you want to taper off your pear shading as you're going, and it really doesn't take a lot to do it, but you can see using this Herman oak leather, which is primarily the only thing that I use anymore, just Herman oak, that you get real good depth and real good burnishing without having to do any kind of beating it to death with a real heavy maul. This is only a 14-ounce maul that I'm working with today. And so from here, if you notice, when you pear shade, you create hard lines. It's just the nature of the tool. You'll create hard lines on the side. And in nature, you don't have that. So the best way to get rid of that is with the same tool, with the thumbprint. This is a thumbprint. Barry King makes one exactly the same size as this. It's 11/16 long and 3/16 wide. And it's smooth, of course. Smooth is the only way to go here because you don't want lines on the surface of your leaf. And so you just use it like an eraser to erase the hard lines. Now it might be kind of hard to see from that angle, so I'll try to move over here. You just use it like an eraser, and you erase those hard lines just by hand with the thumbprint. And you can pull the thumbprint or pear shading on out to the edge of the leaf. And so in fact, what you're doing by doing this process, you're actually sculpting the leather also. You're not just carving, you're not just tooling, you're actually sculpting, which is, exactly the process. So don't be afraid to get in there because, pretty much everybody knows how to use an eraser. And the biggest thing that you don't want to do is try to make it perfect, because leaves in general are just not perfect. There's almost always some type of bug bite on it, or a tear, or deformity. A lot of the leaves are very deformed, but you can see that it just rounds out those hard lines, and that in itself, that alone, makes the leaf look so much more real. Now, the reason why most people tool oak leaves the way they do is it's a speed type thing. That's, it makes it a lot faster. It's a lot easier to do when you don't have to pay attention to everything else here. And just like that, we've made it look so much more real just by doing that. So the next step is putting in the micro veins. Now, what I use is it's a extra fine tip stylus. It measures 25 thousandths. The little bead on there is 25 thousandths of an inch. So it's really delicate, but it's the best thing there is for creating micro veins. And micro veins are almost always very squiggly, and they always have like pairs or triple lines coming together. It's very unusual to have just one main line coming down. And if you notice, when they join up, it always joins in an area where it heads out. So you can tell it's a real quick process. It's easy to do. What I always tell everybody is if the best way to do it is have like 20 cups of coffee to start with, and then you'll do just fine, because you don't want straight lines at all. You can see it goes really fast, and the most important thing is try not to duplicate every one of them. Your hand will have a tendency to want to try to duplicate each one of the lines, and you don't need to do that. Now, this is part of the process of creating depth, definition, and detail. On a lot of things, we want to include separation, but there's nothing, this leaf isn't on top of anything other than the background. So the separation part of that will be separating it from the background. All right, so as you see, we've already got the veins in there. It's coming to life. And so one of the next things that we need to do is we need to actually mat down the outside of this leaf. And by matting it down, that'll create a lot more separation between the leaf and the background. The way it is now, it just looks like it's a piece of wood that has a leaf carved into the wood. Well, that's not the way it is in nature. And so we want to make it look like the leaf is actually on top of the background. And the best way to do that is with a matting tool. Craft Tool used to make one that was smooth like this. For some reason, the number 900 comes to mind, but I'm not sure about that. They still make one that's checkered, and checkered will work as long as you're just going over the background. But if you're going over on top of another leaf or something, you really need a smooth one. But it's basically, all it does is it just moves the your beveled line farther away from your object piece. And that's really all it does. And even as big as this tool is, you can see you can get it in some really tight spots. Now, of course, I'm going real quick because of the video, but still, you can already see that that part of the leaf looks like it's above the background, which literally it is, because you're pushed down parts of the background. Now, of course, you're not going to be able to get into real small areas, but you'll be surprised, how small of an area you can get into with this small or this big tool. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do half of this leaf throughout the whole process so that you can see the difference between one side and the other. Now, we're not worried too much about any of the lines that are showing up out here because that's going to be covered up by background. So we really don't need to worry about that. The only time you really need to worry about that is whenever you have a leaf or a flower petal or something over top of another, because you really don't want to create any extra lines over top of something else. All right, well that's pretty much it for the matting. Unfortunately, it seems like matting is one of those things that is just really not talked about, but it's one of the best processes for creating a lot of depth and definition. Now you can see there's a couple places here where I kind of smash things down, and all we have to do is just go back with the convex bevelers and just reinitialize that. Set it back into place. Now there, I could have used the biggest one. The biggest one in the set that he sent me to try out is really big. It's not very many places where you could use it. I mean, you could use it right there. You can see how big it is. You could use it there, but most of the time, just the middle size is all you need. Which he did a great job on machining these. It's really a nice tool, and he's working on the convex ones to do outside curves with. Okay, so now we got those reestablished. Now this is kind of where the magic comes in, is using a handheld pedal lifter. Handheld pedal lifter is really the only way that you're going to get really good depth. Undershot bevelers, undercut bevelers, they kind of start the process a little bit, but they don't do the same thing. And so basically the way a pedal lifter works is when you pivot the front of this part here, the actual cutting part, when you pivot it from side to side, that actually cuts the channel. Then when you want to lift, you turn it like a screwdriver. And I don't know if you can see it on the video, but it raises up considerably. You don't ever want to lift up or push down. Never raise or lower the handle. It's all done with a pivoting action and then a turning action like you're using a screwdriver. So if you try to lift, you'll probably tear the leather, which that's pretty easy to do anyway. And so you have to have a bit of control. But you can see that I'm sweeping that in, and I'm using my finger as a pivot point, but it also gives me a lot more stability as far as being able to control the tool. See, by sweeping it, you can make it look a lot more natural that way. You can get up in there, and you'll be surprised how deep you can get the tool in there without going through the backside of the leather. See, if you can see, I don't know if you can see, but I'm just almost to the stem. And of course, you have 4 different size pedal lifters. I make a lot of pedal lifters. It's one of my most popular items is pedal lifters. Back many years ago, in the early 80s, I was working at a saddle shop, and at that time I thought I had invented the most wonderful tool, the pedal lifters. Come to find out, I was not the inventor of it, but at that time, and up until like 10 years ago, when I first started teaching leather, I don't know of anybody that was actually using them in the same manner that I am. So, it's one of those things. I'm just real glad that I was able to get them back out there being used again, because it creates so much depth to the piece as far as how it looks. And with 4 different sizes, that's really about all you need. You don't need to get too carried away with super big ones or super small ones. It's just most of the time it's really not necessary. Now, Jeff Mosby makes pedal lifters. Barry King makes pedal lifters. And so, they're a good option to get them from. Of course, each one of us make them a little bit different, but you can already see how much depth and definition we're getting there. And so now, I will go ahead and background that area. I just made another tool the other day. This one here kind of looks like an undershot beveler, but what it is, it's actually a background tool where I can get up underneath where the lifted area is, and background up behind there, up all the way up under there. Now, where I got this idea from was from Bob Beard. He makes some wonderful tools like this. But it's one of those things. I just figured that I would go ahead and make it myself and try it and see how it works. One of these days I'll probably get some of those from Bob. Bob is a great guy to deal with if you ever get a chance. He's absolutely a wealth of knowledge. So if you get a chance to talk to Bob, by all means talk to Bob. Alright, so now I've got it backgrounded up underneath there. Now, one thing I like to do is take just a checkered, I think this is an 888, I believe, yeah, 888 background tools. It's the same tool that came in the original Lucky 7 or something toolkits that Craft Tool put out. And I just do a little fan, a little radius coming out from there, so that the background, when I put the background in, it actually blends into that. And they blend really nice. And you can see it really doesn't take, much if any longer to create a realistic looking leaf than it does an impressionistic looking leaf. And as always, the background tool can actually be used like a little bit of a beveler as well. If you have a little bit of a rough edge there, you can use the background tool to help straighten it out. But I think there's so many people that have never actually seen this process or had a chance to take one of my classes, but you know, if you get a chance, I think it would definitely be a good eye-opener for you. I'm in about 2.5 weeks, the second, or I think it's the second weekend of October in St. Louis. I will be there. I have one class that is strictly on depth, definition, and detail, using the same process, and it's an all-day class, so there will be a lot more tips and tricks than what I can actually show you here. But already you can see how much more depth there is on there, and I'm really not, as you can tell, I'm really not hitting it hard. It's just the process. And this type of textured background tool, matting tool, is basically the same exact shape as the regular matting tool, except that it has a texture put into it. I believe Sergey has something that's very similar to that. I think the one that he makes is the closest of anybody's that comes to this particular random pebble type. Most all the other ones have a lot of bubbles and not really pebbles. It's just a little bit of different design. That's all it is. It's not that one is better than the other. It's just a different design. But as you see, you can tell how much more depth there is on this one side than there is the other side. And hopefully I can get this all on the video before it times out. I don't really know how much time I have, but I'm just continuing on. And I'm just about done with that. Now, one thing you always need to do, no matter whether it's a little practice piece or if it's something you plan on keeping, is always mark it. Always put your maker's mark in there. Jeff Mosby is a great guy to deal with when it comes to a maker's mark. He created this one for me years ago. It's had years and years of use, and it's still as crisp as brand new. Now you can see what kind of depth we have there. Now my final step, whenever I go to completely finish something up, I'll use my pedal lifter again. Just go in there and make sure that I haven't collapsed it by getting my big old ham hands on here and pushing those down. And when it dries, it will dry in whatever position you have it in. So try to make sure all your lifts are up exactly where they should be. And that is the process. That's called realistic leaves. Now, one other thing I do is I do a lot of color work like this here. Of course, that's a little bit of a tedious process, but it's anybody can do it. It's pretty simple. I have so many people out there using that now. But as you see, that's what we create. You can tell how much more depth there is over on this side than there is on this side. And this is pretty much what everybody does. This is realistic leaves here. So I appreciate y'all stopping by, and just send me some likes or whatever, and just let me know that whether you like it or if you hate it or whatever. Just let me know. And thanks for coming by. Bye.